What's up, party people? I'm back again, and I'm helping out a buddy of mine who claims he's in dire need of a gaming PC, which no one's ever in dire need of a gaming PC, unless you're like a pro gamer, I guess. But he's not a pro gamer, he just needs a Snickers bar. So we're gonna help him out today. He's looking for around $1,000 build. He's trying to stay within that budget, and he's not really fond of RGB either. So we're gonna try to avoid all the luminescence where we can, which is kind of hard these days. But I actually have in mind a particular CPU for him that would work really well, I think, and also one that I have not played around with myself yet, so I'm actually kind of curious to just get my hands on it and test it out as well. It came out a few weeks ago. It's an AMD chip. It's the 5600X3D. I'm sure you guys have already heard of it and probably watched several reviews on it perhaps from some of my online buddies, but there's only one place that you can actually get it. It's a really weird launch, and that place is a brick and mortar store that's about an hour away from me. I think most of you guys probably know where we're headed. I'm back at Micro Center, I'm back at Micro Center, I'm back at Micro Center, which nobody lives nearby. Yes, it's very unfortunate. I realize how lucky I am to live near a Micro Center, and so few of you guys do. This is the Tustin location. I should mention that this is not sponsored by Micro Center in any way, shape, or form. They have no idea I'm even here. They'll probably be surprised to see me if they even recognize me. But I will be doing a sponsored video with them in about a month or so, where I actually go to their Indianapolis store location, which just had their grand opening. Very excited to check out the new store and maybe build a PC while I'm there. We'll see. But for now, I'm just helping out a friend assemble his rig. So why don't we go in there and get some parts. Before we continue, this video is brought to you in part by cdkeyoffer.com. So I have 3 desktop PCs that I regularly bounce between, and all of them are running activated copies of Windows from keys that I got on cdkeyoffer.com. I've used many key sites in the past, but CD Key Offer is the only one I've never had an issue with. I've never had a bad key, I've never had to call customer service, I've never had to email customer support, and I've never had to activate Windows over a phone, which is super fun. Right now you can get a Windows 10 Pro OEM key for around $22, but wait! Add it to your cart, use the 25% discount code BW20 at checkout, and the price drops to just $16.93. Buy GrabStar's hammer, what a savings. To use your new key, just go to your purchased orders from the drop-down menu to view and copy the key once you get there, and then paste that key into the Windows activation page. Voila! You've got an activated OS that's also eligible for a free upgrade to Windows 11. Alternatively, you can skip the upgrade and buy Windows 11 Pro directly using the same code BW20 to snag the OS for around $23. Activate the key using the aforementioned steps and get the full Windows experience easily and affordably. Thanks again to cdkeyoffer.com. Now back to the main video. We got it, baby. Here it is, 5600X3D. I saw that they had like 20 in stock at this location. That was yesterday though. I was like, I hope they don't sell out by the time I get there, because I know these are hot product, and Micro Center again is the only place you can get it. It's a really weird launch, and I'm sure you guys already know this by now, but for those who don't, the 5600X3D is basically just a failed 5800X. It was a defect, there was something wrong with it, so they turned them into 5600X3Ds with 2 fewer cores. This is actually a really solid mid-range gaming chip, 6 cores, 12 threads. It's got a lower base clock, or actually frequency all around than like 5600X, for example, but the L3 cache is ridiculous. It's got at least like 2 billion megabytes of cache, which is part of what makes it such a great gaming chip, especially for the price, which is, I think they have it listed for like $229? Is it $229? Something like that. All right. $229. He's been helping me out. Thank you very much. Also, we have the GPU. This is a friend's build, like I said. He really insisted on NVIDIA, as I like to call them, Ingredia these days. I was like, why do you want NVIDIA so bad? He was like, well, you know, ray tracing, DLSS, I have no soul. So I was like, okay, cool, yeah, we'll go for it. Now, we could go with a 4000 series GPU, but as a lot of you guys already know, those are super overpriced, I think, as well. We're seeing very marginal gains for a lot more money, and it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So we are still going with NVIDIA though, because that's what my friend wants. 3060 Ti, I think, is a really nice bargain. It's a good value, much better value than the 4060 beneath it and the 4060 Ti above it, and I think we're getting it for around $335. There's no way I would take like an 8% performance bump for $100 more than this getting a 4060 Ti. There's just absolutely no way we're gonna do that. But going back to this guy really quick, my friend who has, like I said, around $1,000 for his budget, he asked me, he was like, how far would $1,000 get me for AM5, because it's obviously AM4 last gen. He wants the latest and greatest. He's like, how far would $1,000 get me on AM5? I was like, you see this AM5 motherboard box? He's like, yeah. I was like, that's about as far as you'll get. It's super expensive when you consider just how much more pricey the AM5 boards are. Plus you got to account for DDR5 memory, which is a lot more costly than DDR4. I was like, dude, you're not gonna, like, let's just go with DDR4 or AM4. One thing I should point out about the 5600X3D is that it doesn't come included with the Wraith cooler, which was always a really nice bonus add that I always appreciated, but we don't have it here, so I'm gonna hook my friend up with an AK400 Zero Dark from Deepcool. It's a $40 cooler. Reminds me of the good old, 212, Hyper 212 Evos back in the day from Cooler Master. It's very simple, straightforward, single tower, single fan, but totally blacked out as well, which is what my friend wants, so that's what he's getting. For the case, I'm going with a Lian Li Landcool 216. I've never worked in this case before. I don't even know when it came out. I might have missed this while I took my little hiatus from the channel, but it's got two 160 millimeter fans at the front. That's fun. And then another pre-installed 140 at the rear. Lots of airflow. Obviously, there's lots of airflow. As you can see, there's tons of mesh at the front. Should be good for airflow. This is gonna be obviously an airflow build, and I think the price is right for about 100 bucks. That's good mid-range. That's about right for a $1,000 build. Black, let's make sure this is black. It looks black to me. And also make sure that there's no RGB, because there is an RGB version of this, which we don't want. I believe, yeah, okay. It would have that if it was, which it doesn't, so we should be good. All right, we are ready for checkout. One thing I added at the last minute, cable mod cables, sleeved cables. I'm not charging my friend for these. These are on the house. I just don't want him to have an ugly build. How's it going? Good, good. I'm just making a quick little video here. Every now and then I like to come in here and harass you guys. Oh, can you ring this one up last?
Absolutely.
Because I just want to see what the price is before we add this. My friend's got a $1,000 budget, and I'm pretty convinced that I have it really close to that. I'm not very good at math, but we'll put it to the test right now. All right, let's see what the total is. We are at, oh shoot, I got pretty close. I'm a little over budget, but I'll consider it a building fee since I'm building this for my friend. All right, $1,000 build. AMD sponsored plant. Ridiculous. I hate it. All right, we're back on the road. Ran into some of the Micro Center staff there. Those guys are awesome, super nice, friendly, accommodating as always. Got all the parts we needed, and now for the fun part. We get to go back and build this thing. But I know what you guys are thinking. Kyle, it's been several months since you put out a proper YouTube video. Do you even remember how to build a PC? Guys, building a PC is no different than riding a bike. Once you learn how to do it, you never forget it. Plus, I still have all the wrenches for the job. Yeah, build complete. Look at that, it's looking pretty blacked out. Not an ounce of RGB in sight, or color apart from the little bit of teal that's on the cooler, but I rather like it. It pops a lot because it's just completely void of color elsewhere. There is an LED, a debug LED on the motherboard. I don't know why it's lighting up right now. Hopefully everything's okay. Obviously those larger fan blades allow it to spin at lower RPMs and still deliver the same amount of airflow that a smaller fan would be able to achieve, so that helps acoustics as well. It is very quiet, a lot of air moving through here. One thing I will say about this case is that it does dwarf the components a little bit. The CPU cooler and GPU aren't very large. I mean, this is a 360 Ti after all, and we have a very cavernous mid-tower case here. So it does look a little bit dwarfed. You know, it looks like there's maybe a little bit too much extra room in here, but that's okay, I think, because if my friend does plan to upgrade in the future, within this case, he has a lot of room for more power, right? Bigger GPUs, bigger CPU coolers, even liquid cooling as well, because you have plenty of radiator support at the top. And on a quick side note, I realized, or maybe re-realized when parting out this build at Micro Center, is that it's a little bit more difficult to just build a completely blacked out system nowadays than it was before the whole RGB craze, before it really took off. Because back in the day, when RGB was just made for the premium products, you could find like blacked out RAM kits that were a little bit cheaper very easily. But now even the cheap RAM sticks have RGB on them because it's so popular. and you don't always want that. And plus the cheap RGB stuff, you can see the LED hotspots, it looks not very seamless and stuff. Fortunately, I was able to find that T-Force kit that is a kind of a gunmetal gray, which blends in perfectly with the rest of the build. Building in the Land-Cooled 216 was pretty sweet, especially when, like I said, a lot of the components that we're using are relatively small. One thing I wanted to point out from the back, in the back of this case that I really like, first of all, push pins, good. Classic Lee and Lee. These cable management tabs, whatever you want to call them, this is genius. The way it works is you just lift it. It's screwed onto one side and then open on the other. It's kind of just, you know, not a spring, but springy. And you just, well, it's getting caught on a screw right now. You just fold it out like that and then pop it back in. It's hard to do with one hand, much easier to do with two. Boom, like it's just so simple. It's so simple, but so easy to use, so effective. This is the best cable out of all the stupid cable management gimmicks that I've seen behind a motherboard tray in the last 5 years probably. This is the coolest thing. This is my favorite. This is by far my favorite cable management addition that's been made to cases. Good job, Lee and Lee. That's a really smart move. For the rest of the cable management here, it's pretty straightforward. Typical Velcro straps, some tie down points. I do like the removable cover plate that they put here that covers up the cutout for your CPU cooler, because it also has a couple tie down points for more cables, just utilizing the space that would otherwise be pretty useless, apart from changing out your CPU cooler should you need to down the line. One gripe that I have about this case, I think probably the only main gripe, is this piece right here, which is removable. You can unscrew it from the back. There's one screw holding it in, and you're just supposed to slide it off, but the slide it's tight. It's really, really tight. I was struggling with it so much, I eventually had to grab a ruler to help pry it open. I don't know if it's just this case or if that's how they all are, but it was really difficult to take off. One thing I'll note is that the power supply is pretty ugly. It's a power spec, sort of, I think, Micro Center's in-house brand for PSUs. They're reliable enough from what I've heard. I haven't tested them personally, nor do I have the tools to, but I've heard that they're decent units. However, the side of them is kind of an eyesore, especially when you can see it through the side of your case. So what I did was I just covered it up with electrical tape, which is a super ghetto method, but it works because you can't really see it whatsoever behind the mesh panel here. So it just looks like completely blacked out. Overall, I think this is a pretty solid build for $1,000 here in the middle of 2023, but don't take my word for it. Let's see the frame rates. All right, so I ran 3 games, didn't go super crazy or anything, didn't want to spend the whole day benchmarking, but this should give us a pretty good idea of how the system's performing. I tested at both 1080p as well as 1440p. God of War at 1080 high settings, I was seeing anywhere between 100 and 120 frames per second, which is super playable. At 1440, we were getting roughly between 80 and 90 frames per second, well above 60. This is important for my friend to know because he was still deciding between a 1080 or a 1440 monitor. I think once he sees these results, he's gonna go with 1440. At least that's what I would recommend. In Shadow of the Tomb Raider at 1080 high settings, we were getting anywhere between 170 to 190 frames per second in the area that we were testing in, which is the jungly, foresty area. You don't really need super high frame rates in this game, but this system delivers it regardless, and it's nice. At 1440, still really high, well above 100 frames per second here, getting anywhere between 120 and 130 FPS. And finally, with the most demanding title, Cyberpunk 2077, at 1080 high settings, this game swings wildly when it comes to frame rates just due to the diversity of environments and different structures, draw distance, everything's constantly changing. Sometimes there's nobody around, sometimes there's a million people around. So I was seeing dips into the 90s when it was a really congested part of town, part of the city, all the way up to 150 when it's a bit more remote. But I would say average, if I had to ballpark it, maybe roughly around 120 frames per second, just driving through the city and on the outskirts. At 1440, same deal, dips into the 60s, all the way up to 100, but the rough average I was seeing was between 70 and 80 frames per second, which is still super solid for this game. Ray tracing wasn't enabled, but neither was DLSS, so kind of a wash there. And when it comes to temperatures, this thing was staying super cool with the side panels on and all that jazz. CPU wasn't getting hotter than 58C, and then on the RTX 3060 Ti, we weren't seeing any hotter than 68C. So high 50s for the CPU, high 60s for the GPU. We're getting well over 100 FPS in all these titles at 1080 and well above 60 FPS at 1440. I'd say that's a win. I think what this video tells us is that you can still build a pretty decent gaming PC for around $1,000 these days, but you probably have to go back to last generation parts to do it, just because everything is so up right now with the 40 series from NVIDIA. AMD has just kind of been, we're waiting for them to drop new GPUs. But yeah, it's really sad because I feel like this is on the better side of a PC you can get for the money right now, and we're using an AM4 chip and a GPU that came out in 2021, at the very beginning of 2021. So this card is like 2.5 years old now. That's insane. I hope things get better. They probably will, they always do, but man, we've been in a rut for a while. So I guess we'll just keep waiting. But this was fun. I really like this build. I don't know if I want to give it to my friend anymore. I don't think he deserves it. I think I should keep it. All right, anyway, I'm gonna get out of here. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to the channel. No, you know what? Subscribe to my podcast. I'm really like, if I could just say that, follow my podcast. It's called Super Special. I'll link it in the description. Every single Wednesday, a new episode comes out. I host it with my good friend Ian, who I've known since high school, and we just talk about random stuff. It would really mean a lot to me if you guys gave it a watch or listen. It's great to listen to in the background when you're working or on your way to work. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to a lot lately. Been working really hard on it. Really proud of it so far, even though it's still very much in its infancy. But go ahead and check it out. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching this video though. Toss a like on it before you go, and I'll see you guys next time.